My name is Kelly. Happy 4th of July. This is Jared to Jared. On this week's episode, the Jareds will discuss hero and anti-hero, the magic of objects, capitalism, the movie The Dark Crystal, Pixar, Disney, and much, much more. Buckle up, guys. Let the adventure begin.
Yeah, so went to the Motley downtown, had a couple beers, saw some friends. In small town, realized that one of my friends is also really good friends with a different friend at the store that I go to, and we went and had a drink together and just whatever. It was really fun. Dolly had fun. We were like, dude, had the best torta I've ever had in my life. Good at this taco truck.
Nice.
You know what's crazy is the economy. Everything.
Shut the fuck. You know it's crazy? The economy.
The economy, dude. Everything is like $48 nowadays. I don't.
Oh, I know, it's
like
insane.
a weird number. Where like I couldn't do anything this weekend. Food, movies, popcorn, you name it, whatever it was. Parking, for crying out loud. Everything was $48. Just like, geez, half $100. My God. Nah.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Like we went to there's this really cool movie theater in Denver called the Mayan. It was built in like the 30s, and they have this like giant like sculpture of like a Mayan looking dude and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so and they play like all like independent films, but also like mainstream ones. So we saw Asteroid City.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a cool ass theater. But yeah, you're right. Like just trying to like just see a movie for one night, it's just like, oh man, like
right.
I guess I just won't eat for the next 3 days, catch back up.
Financially recover from this. Dion put it in a good perspective where he's like that torta with tip was like $20.87. Delicious.
Yeah.
But no drink, no nothing, just freaking torta, man.
Yeah,
for a sandwich, Mexican sandwich. That's like an hour's wage. You literally have to work 1 hour to afford one freaking sandwich. What the fuck, man?
Yeah.
This is like, Cold War Soviet Union here, bread line soon.
Yeah. At what point do you think people start blowing it up, start rioting? When does that happen? I guess when we can't eat, that's probably when.
I guess so. It's coming soon, But Civil War, we talked about the collapse of empires last episode. So
yeah.
But then that's a funny topic too, is what is the definition of a collapsed empire, right? So Rome, so to speak, collapsed, but there's still Italy and like
Rome is still there, right?
Is it funny. Like a matter of like global influence or amount of property that you own around the world? I don't know. It's weird, right?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, we need a historian on here. Yeah, how do you define a collapse?
Right.
Yeah, the collapse of the empire. I guess maybe when I imagine like when there's a power vacuum.
Right.
Yeah.
And that
maybe not though. I don't know.
That collapses in some sort of way. I don't really know. It's an interesting way to think about it. Would you say that America is still the superpower? Because right now we sort of think about superpowers maybe in terms of military strength.
Yeah.
Economy. Right. I don't really know. Our economy is in shambles. So
yeah,
$20 freaking tortas.
That's how you measure the collapse when tortas go up to like above $20.
If there's no teen in the torta price, you're collapsed.
That's funny. Well, hey, tie it back to oh my God, Slim. Okay, Dark Crystal.
Okay.
So we just watched Dark Crystal for this episode, right? So it opens with a collapse, right? Because the Skeksis emperor dies, and then also the old master with the wise whatever they are, wise men, whoever they are.
Right.
I forgot what they're called.
Yeah.
That dude dies. So that Dark Crystal begins with a collapse, or with an impending collapse, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the only thing holding it together is uh still the hope for power, right?
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
going to be the next emperor? Who's going to be the next capitalist of
Right.
the society, right?
And the search for rebalance. Brothers, oh man, the Skeksis are so funny. I was doing that voice all night.
Not funny at all. They're the scariest bad guys in the history of fantasy.
Yeah, yeah. Because like they won't even say words. Like 90% of the Skeksis dialogue is just like, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Stop me gambling.
Yes, the
It
power
could
is
just be
mine.
the rest of the episode.
Bro. Yeah, we should do a whole episode where we just talk like the Skeksis.
Well, I had some notes here on capitalism too. What's scary too is the reflection of the crystal, right? And
Yeah.
taking the essence and what they actually say before they say the essence when they're freaking zapping that poor little freaking dude.
Yeah.
Um,
The podlings. I love the
right, the
podlings.
boblings, and we're gonna take your fear and your thoughts, and that's your essence. They actually don't say we're gonna take your joy and your happiness, right?
Mm,
Getting took from them is their fear and
yeah.
thoughts, right? And that's a pretty wild notion in its own, and in a spiritual, existence sort
Mm,
of macro photo lens. But what's also interesting about that part is the emperor says you should feel lucky. The only person that can drink from your essence is the emperor, right? And
yeah. Right. That's like Aztec. It was like an honor to be sacrificed, right? Like,
but from a capitalist perspective,
yeah.
the only people that actually can drink from the essence of the consumers are the CEOs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's vampiric. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially,
Yeah.
Zuckerberg and them are just a bunch of crazy birds making sounds over there, sucking.
Well, pretty much, right? And what I love about the Dark Crystal is like it there's a lot of wisdom in that movie, you know? Like I was learning watching it. It's like I feel like the vision of the world that the Dark Crystal presents is very, very accurate. You know, I'm watching and I'm just like, oh, that's exactly what's going on. You know, there's this imbalance. You have these the evil vulture people.
Right.
Um, who are just devoid of any kind of soul, who are just sort of sapping the energy from everything else. You have the little podlings who actually what came out first, Return of the Jedi or this Dark Crystal, because the podlings and the Ewoks are pretty much the same thing.
Geez, 1982. I do know that the first one is 1979, A New Hope.
Yeah. I think it might have been like 82, 83. Look that up, Jamie.
Look that up, Charles. It's a game.
Prince Akib.
I love him. Let's see.
Dude, because watching it, I was like, the podlings are Ewoks. Like they're just these like merry little people who like to play music and party, and then they're victims of like the overarching political narrative that's happening around them.
So Return of the Jedi was 1983.
Ooh, they ripped off the Dark Crystal.
Oh yeah. Though you could say that their puppets were first, in the 70s and 80s with the New Hope and Empire.
Yeah, sure.
Still got that action rolling for their Jabba's palace, So
yeah.
Uh
Wait, say more on the capitalist reading of Dark Crystal.
So it starts off right for the grasp for power.
Yeah.
You have these, an empirical ideal of essentially a lust for power, right?
Right.
We also get the scene of the evil feast, which is so symbolic of the gluttony and greed of a capitalist society. They're freaking feasting noodles. They're disgusting. And then there's a part where the emperor is like, "What's this? Rotten!" Throws his food behind his back, and it's just this really nice little furry creature, just like, oh, so amazing. But he's got that taste, that freaking the rich taste of the capital empire, right? And
Right.
that's really what it is there's a capital empire power where these people own the crystal, which is the money source, the banks in America, the stock market, right?
Right.
And they're lusting in their freaking Trump towers and their bungalows. Oh, trying to think of ways
Oh yeah, yeah.
where they can control us. And then if you really get into it, Apple, Tim Cook, right? VR, the new VR, $3,500 new
Yeah.
VR. Well, essentially what it is we're looking into a reflection, right, of the dark crystal, the dark power, and it's sucking our essence out,
Yeah.
taking our money, taking our time, taking our fear and our thoughts away. And that's one thing also, just a little side note, which is scary about religion and heaven or paradise or whatever, is this state of being removed from your fear and your anxiety and your thoughts,
Right.
so you could live in like an eternal happiness. Well, what it really is a lobotomy, and it's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
to be released. And that's what I love most about this movie too, is at the end when it's can't remember what they say the word is, but they don't die, right? They come together. It's a togetherness of the good and the evil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I love that whole reading looking at like, critiquing capitalism through it or whatever. And well, to add to that, the amount of fear that the Skeksis feel, I mean, like they have the one who loses like the stone battle or whatever, and then he loses the challenge to become emperor, right? And then what do? They don't kill him or anything. They just strip him of his clothing. They're all wearing these like super ornate, ridiculous robes and stuff like that. Then underneath it, they're just these like bony, fucking emaciated, scary looking vultures. So it's a comment on just sort of facade and then or form and content, right? I mean, it's all just like the power that they imbue themselves with is all just the facade of power, the form of power, but then the content of who they are is disgusting. It's fear driven, it's gluttonous, it's there's no real power in it, right?
And the mask is consumerism, right? The mask is what they own, what they wear, aesthetics.
Yeah, yeah,
It's vanity.
yeah.
And
And you look at
they try to get younger, right? And we see this
exactly, yeah,
genetic research and stuff.
exactly, yeah. And it's such a good comment on just sort of like I guess a particular subsection of American culture, but like, people who are, you know, hyper materialistic, vain, that sort of thing. I mean, like you look at Donald Trump and like I I would assume that guy's a Skeksis.
Oh,
Like, it's like I was thinking about I was thinking about Donald Trump the other day, which I think all of us probably do more than we should, but like think of how fear driven that guy is. Or even like Vladimir Putin or someone like that, right? I mean, Trump's kind of a caricature of a human being, but like, okay, Vladimir Putin, it's like if that guy makes any wrong moves, I'm sure that there's so many people who would, have his head and then take his position for power,
right, right.
like they all just live in these sort of like crystal palaces built with fear.
Imagine the fear that he has of the war, what's going
Right.
to, and just all of a sudden a drone can hit me, something can do this, somebody's going to take my yacht away,
Yeah. Yeah.
my palace here in Russia. And then you connect that with the culture and
Yeah.
snowballs into like this massive amount of fear,
Yeah.
which then you find yourself firing off nuclear bombs, destroying.
Yeah, it's all an act of self-preservation, right? I mean, because if you're that obsessed with control, like why do we want to control things, whether in a big political way or in our own individual lives? It's coming from a place of fear.
Here's another funny little Hey, question one. Why is Jen naked in the first scene? I was thinking, and I was thinking with these fantasy, like the Bible, naked in the beginning, naked in the
Yeah, innocent. Yeah.
just innocence. What
Yeah.
is that? And why do we reject clothes so much? It could just be like, hey man, I really like this banana leaf, especially when I cut it into jeans, you know. Is it
Oh,
that
that's
big of a
funny. Yeah.
deal? Or is it we really just reject shame? So we hate the feeling
Yeah.
of shame so much that we also then reject the clothes because it's the rejection of a feeling that we shouldn't have in the first place. I don't really even understand.
Yeah. I mean, to the extent that I think I understand it, I think it's just nakedness as metaphor, not just physical nakedness, which is highly vulnerable. You know, if you're imagine being naked in front of like a group of people or something like that, it's like you're exposed. It's this deep sense of exposure. And then when you're comfortably naked, you know, you're honest, you're truthful, you're naked in your soul. You know, you've bared yourself literally, right? So there's this kind of Edenic quality. You're not running from anything. It's the opposite of the Skeksis.
Right, right.
Yeah. So I think it was just, you know, it's just him doing this like idyllic, like, I don't know, like Greek nymph boy hanging out by a stream playing his flute, you know?
Right. I still think that it's weird that there's a harking back to a time when everyone was naked, you know. I really
Yeah.
I still don't see the idea the like idealism in that sort of society, you know.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
then you're losing out on creativity, right? And expressionism as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the fascinating thing is like um through God, where was I? Okay, the other day I was sitting by there's this lake I live nearby, more of a pond, but it's just like super pretty, and I was just sitting there and feeling very at peace and all of that. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, there, I don't need to make any art, actually. Like, I don't need to. It's like, why would I need to? Look how beautiful the world is. What can I possibly add to it? I could just look at that flower and that's it. That's all the art that's really necessary. You know, what can I possibly add to this? Life is so immensely beautiful at that level. And and then I went home and I made some art because I don't know what else am I gonna do, you know? But but yeah, I think there is a way in which like art is just facade or something like that, or trying to
Sure.
add to life in a way that like what could we possibly add to life? It's so profoundly beautiful already, you know. But
But
then we want to make anyway because it's fun.
but if you think about life as beautiful, you know, thus
Yeah,
their nature, yeah, then
yeah,
we'd be part of that whole entire narrative.
sure.
Our human expression through art would just be another extension of nature itself, right? Thus
Yeah, yeah,
contributing to the larger framework of what a natural space is.
right. That's interesting. I like that. The actually that scene of him playing the flute at the beginning, it reminded me of David and Prometheus playing the flute in order to um whatever he was doing, he played the flute and that like turned on the like radiation machine or whatever it was.
Right, right.
Um yeah, something about that, you know, like like the very first scene is the Gelfling sitting in nature playing the flute, and something about that ties to David the AI who at the end of that one episode we said is the artist, is the philosopher. You know, is Jen the Gelfling? Well, he's the chosen one. You know, he's definitely the chosen one. He's the Paul Atreides. He's the Luke Skywalker, right?
Right.
Is he is he an artist? Is he a philosopher? What is a Gelfling? He seems very close to nature. He's of an elven class, you know?
Right, right. Um, I think that again, just the call back to nature,
Yeah.
the call back to the artist and creativity. And if you read Prometheus through that perspective, while David is Luke Skywalker, I think we came up with this in episode 3, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is the primary character. And it's driven through visuals and audible examples like
Yeah.
the flute, right? And if you see the feat, like the differences between the good and evil feasts, they're making noises. eating, complaining. And then the Feast of the Gelflings is everybody's dancing, music.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
podlings. Yeah.
And I think that also connects us to our culture as human beings, all cultures, right? Is
Yeah.
being able to connect through music, through dance, through peace, through food, right? And
Right.
and that brings apart a certain, culture or feel or whatever.
Yeah.
Likewise, though, on the counterpart, there's a lot of evil. I'm trying to think of a good example of like music through evil. And what's the 80s fantasy legend? I think it is. And David Bowie's in it. And
Oh, Labyrinth. Yeah, of course.
Labyrinth. Yeah.
Labyrinth. Yeah.
And that music is meant to inscribe a fear, but it's also
Right.
making a culture, right? Creating a culture between him and his evil trolls through
Yeah.
music, though, still, so.
Right. And that's the weird thing about music, I think in particular, maybe all art and culture, but music in particular, or even food, all of it. It's like they can be used to mesmerize. And then once an individual is mesmerized, they can be controlled. Right. I mean, that's why you get like Pink Floyd, for example, was I think it was Roger Waters in particular, maybe, but had this like phobia of the crowds that they were drawing into their concerts, where it was just too much. It was like absolutely kind of terrifying, insane. And then they saw an equivalent between the crowds they were drawing and the crowds that Hitler had drawn, during the World War II era, and was what is this mesmerization process that we're doing right now. They were kind of like the Pied Pipers of that culture, and there was something scary about it. And there's some story where, again, I think it was Roger Waters, maybe as another member of the band, but he was like freaking out on stage and just like spit in the faces of people in the front row and getting all like anxious and pissed off and
So
all of that, So there's something
yeah,
to that, can music and art and all of that be used for the sake of control as much as it can be used for the sake of liberation?
right. It also freaks me out the power of what we hear, you know,
Oh yeah.
music, words, how we hear them, the
Yeah.
tones which we hear them have more influence as to how we act through our bodies.
Yeah.
Because really, we've talked about this. What is language, anyways? We're just making sounds, like various
Right.
sound, like the word noise is just ooh, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know what. We're just
Yeah.
making noises, essentially. But it's what. But of course, this goes into the sign and signification of what we attest these noises to. Uh,
Yeah.
the meaning of them, etc. But still, though, they're only noises nonetheless, right? And this
Right.
what we hear, except Hitler's a crazy example too with his public speaking, and
Yeah.
starting at a whisper, ending his speeches screaming at the microphone.
Oh yeah.
And again, how that entranced people in the masses.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. And also that was a very specific crowd. I mean, like Germans throughout, post World War One Germans were like suffering a level of poverty that you and I can't understand. So there's just like a deep desperation there, right? Um, and then Hitler sort of manifested from that slash also took control of it, took advantage of it. But yeah, I mean, I do think the aesthetic input that we're absorbing, whether that's music, I think maybe even especially music, but music, visual art, film, all that stuff, there is a level of mind control that's happening, right? I mean, if you sit there listening to a song about um I don't know, literally anything. Let's say you're listening to a song about like I don't know how great North Korea is or something like that, and you're listening and you're listening to that music all
Slander.
day, every day. I mean, this is propaganda, right? You're
Right.
going to absorb that at some level unless you're willing to critically think. But especially if it's like a good, catchy pop song that's like Kim Jong Un, praise him, yeah. Like
Prime
you know,
Minister
you're
of Malaysia. Yeah. North Korea. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's what was that fucking Zoolander, right?
Freaking Zoolander.
Yeah. Yeah, don't listen to this podcast. Just go watch Zoolander and you'll see
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I'm
Come
talking
back
about.
around.
But yeah, no, but that's exactly it. And I do think that's a real thing. And I think if you listen to, mainstream pop music in America, there is like a hyper consumeristic message that's being propagated there.
Right. You know what's freaking me out the other day, sort of on the same lines of this, is how we're like sponges.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
You can the human brain, like I'm listening to the Aragon right now, the book.
Oh, cool.
Incredible. There's like four of them, all about different dragons, whatever. But it's wild to think that there's some writers, even because I'm currently writing a fantasy book, right? History of Heroes, Dreams of Jirga. And
Yes.
uh it's weird how you absorb other people's art and then can all of a sudden naturally start like practicing or exuberating factors of their own creativity and their own
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
it's getting influenced essentially, right? But the brain is like this weird sponge, that can just Stevie Ray Vaughan never knew how to read music, but he listened to all this other music, guitar player,
Yeah.
ever sponged it up and made his own, spurted it out as his own unique Stevie Ray Vaughan version of all this, influences essentially.
Yeah.
So it's weird how it's just weird how the brain adapts.
Oh yeah, we're children. I feel like there's this idea that like children are way more impressionable than adults. Like I don't think that's true. I think adults just like we've developed some guardedness and coping mechanisms. We're kind of more shut down. But I think if especially if you're just a generally open person, you're like that sponginess never goes away.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You know which part also freaked me out in that movie is when Jen and is it Kira? What's his?
Yeah, Akira. Yeah.
They find their like the ancient civilization of the Gelfins.
That
Right?
was so cool. Yeah.
Bad things happened here, Jen. We can't
Yeah.
come in. And he's like, but they were Gelfins here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like how what a wild experience that would be. And I was thinking, what's the closest thing we have to that in human history? And that's probably like genocide of cultures or civilizations, whether that's
Yeah.
natural disaster or human warfare, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But imagine even like, say, aliens came, killed off most the majority of the humans or AI, whatever it is, and there's only like me and you are the last remaining human Galfins. And we roll up onto like the UNM campus that's like covered in spider webs and shit, and just like humans were here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a wild concept. I love it so much.
Oh, it's the Planet of the Apes moment, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. But what I love about Jen's narrative, I mean, it's the whole Joseph Campbell hero's journey thing. I mean, and I get such a kick out of that because I take that stuff very seriously, like because I think it's a model for how we can live our actual lives, because there's so many moments early on when Jen, like by the master, Jen is being like put onto this journey, and Jen's first reaction is just like, I'm just a gelfling, I can't do this. And it's like everyone feels that at some point, right? Just like you're in over your head. How am I going to do this? I don't think I'm the one who's supposed to be doing this, or just that sense of self-doubt, right? That's part of the hero's journey. And then, he eventually still responds yes to going on the journey, goes ahead. And then there's kind of these inner forces that are unleashed throughout the process.
Right.
And I found that to be true in my own life journey. It's like you feel like you're in over your head, you're confused, you're lost, you're in Dante's dark wood, so to speak, right? I mean, Dante's Inferno also follows the hero's journey, but just the hero's journey pattern I feel like is so spot on for life cycles that we go through. So
Right.
I really appreciated that in the movie.
Yeah, that's sort of like the classic Bildungsroman too, of like
Yeah, yeah.
age, and yeah, I can certainly relate to that. I think we all can in academia, especially, imposter syndrome, whatever. Just
Yeah.
if I could go to graduate school, sir.
I'm just a gelfling.
I'm just a little mexling. Me tortillas, sir. And then, but then that also happens with Kira too at the end when he's like, "Fighter, Kira,"
Yeah,
and she calls the animals. She finds her true power,
exactly. Yeah.
and in the action scene, love it. Coming of age.
Yeah, and you have to be and you have to hit these obstacles and these challenges in order to like it's the obstacles that draw out that inner power, you know,
Sure.
that inner truth of who you are, of who the Gelflings are, or whatever. You have to come into confrontation with the Skeksis if you're going to find out who you really are,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know. So the Skeksis is actually a very very important and crucial part of the human experience, and you can also do like a Jungian reading of the Dark Crystal, where you're looking at the shadow, the darkness, all of that, and how the darkness isn't something to be cut out and rejected the way you would cut out a tumor or something like that, but is actually something to be integrated and unified for you to become a whole being.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me this: what are your thoughts on like objectophilia, like the ring in Lord of the Rings, the obsession with
Oh, good question.
the object, right? The power.
Yeah. Mm.
I just watched Indiana Jones, me and Dolly last night, and it's
Like the original Raiders, or
the new one, the new one.
oh,
We did
cool.
watch Raiders the other day, but that movie is incredible.
Yeah, so good.
And I like rewatched again, just like it's like weird nostalgia. 80s fantasy movies can only create,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
like trying to decipher the Egyptian emblem, and just like this really
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
Arabian, like
Right, right,
Jerusalem, like fireplace going, and the mystics there in his robe.
right. All these epic tales, like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
just like that adventure, But again, all the Indiana Jones too are sort of this idolatry, right? Or this obsession with objects, like
yes,
the Ark, the crystal skulls. In this one, it's Archimedes' dial, right? And
yeah, yeah,
the new one, it's so cool, man. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
too long. That movie's way too long. And this is another point I wanted to get to on the pod. Because I got some complaints with modern day movies, but also like in the 70s, all our movies were like 4 or 5 hours long.
Yeah.
And then America was like, what the heck, guys? So eight came around, we were cut down to like an hour and 20 minutes, 90s, 2000s, 10s.
Yeah,
Now we're back, man. Every freaking movie I watch is goddamn 4 hours long. Just like
yeah. We brought
too
it
long.
back. Yeah,
It's too much. Like wrap it up. A great movie, but still it could have been half hour shorter. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. We'll get to the objectphilia thing because I love that idea, that question. But like,
Yeah.
I guess there's a few things going on there. One is just it's just like it's a plot device. It's like it's football, right? I mean, what's happening in football? Everyone's fighting over the object, right? That's it. So Dark Crystal, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all these movies, it's literally just watching football in the sense that, there's like a light side, a dark side, my team, your team, and we're just like competing over this object. I mean, and then even in Dark Crystal, like there's literally Kira like throws it to him and he needs to like get the touchdown. Essentially, it's literally just plot device. It's football. And then I think there's a level where it's like magical objects. I think that's a real thing. Okay, an obvious example of this that most people have had is, let's say you have a letter, say, from, I don't know, past lover, something like that, right? And then you're trying to let go of that and you burn it. Or you write down something on a piece of paper that you want to let go of and you burn it, right? I feel like that's like a
Sure.
cute little magical thing that a lot of people have done. because there's energy there. I mean, I think objects actually do inhere a kind of energy.
And
Oh,
that
get
might
this
not
one.
be like a reminder of
Yeah.
trauma, but still, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, speaking of magical objects. Okay, so towards the end of my time as a high school teacher, um, there was I was unhappy, whatever, all that stuff. There's a lot of darkness there. I was very unhappy. So I could literally feel on my clothing. I'd get home and can feel this just like dark energy on my clothing, and I'd have to change out of my clothes and put on different clothes when I got home in order to like feel okay. And a few times in the school, I brought these tarot cards down to the school because I thought the kids would like, think it's funny and want to check them out and stuff. And they did. They loved it. It was like, it was funny. So I'd go around and then with like, especially the kids I didn't know, and I was trying to like get to know better and teach them, gain their trust so I can teach them better, that sort of thing. I'd go up to them and just be like, hey, pick a card. And then I would do that with all these different kids, right?
You'd be
And then
like,
I could
oh,
and then I felt the cards start to have that same just this like scary energy on it. And a lot of those kids were
sure.
coming from like difficult experiences, and tarot cards, I think, are actually have that magical energy to them. And I think the cards were absorbing some of that, right? So then and I had them just like sitting in my room because I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't want to use them anymore because they had this weird energy and I didn't know, what to do with them. And my roommate, like a couple of months ago, I show my roommate the cards, and then she goes, "Whoa, get those away from me! They have something weird on them." So that, yeah, it was weird. So then I burned them. I was like, I don't know what to do with these, so I just threw them in a fire and burned them. There's some kind of like demon on them.
But see, she there was some negativity going on there with your relationship with her, so maybe they were trying to protect you. They're like the crucifix, a Santa Maria, freaking.
Who knows, man? Yeah, I met a lot of demons in Albuquerque. It's crazy. There's so many demons in that town.
It's just funny. I don't really believe in any of that sort of spiritualism. I just
Sure.
that there'd be if it was true, there'd be like more awareness of it. And
Yeah. Well, when I say demons, I mean that like metaphorically and symbolically, not like actually. I just mean there was a lot of heavy shit going on there.
yeah, not like Kalima himself.
No, not like that. No, literally just heavy shit that was having an impact on my life.
It's weird because they say that certain stones and like pearls, I think I was watching something that there's energy, they like absorb your energy. And there's this saying,
Yeah.
there's this certain like necklaces, I think it might have been pearl, whatever, where if you freak out or get flushed or scared or something like that, the necklace gets cold because
Whoa.
it absorbs like heat. And that's
Oh,
just how
interesting.
certain stone works, right?
Yeah.
But so a lot of people throughout history were like, man, these stones like absorb, this gem absorbs like human energy, and
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
uh, and that's why they say like a lot of, back to that class magic and ancient religion, a lot of people and like wizards and shit, witches would get stones,
Mm.
like conjure up all this anger and shit and wear them around their body, and the stones would like get white cold, and they would use those as like hex stones and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting.
Well, if
See,
you
and I
look
feel
at it
like,
from like a neurological, psychological point of view,
yeah,
biological, it's simply just a chemical reaction of body heat and
right.
the compounds of the said certain stone.
Sure. But does that take away its metaphorical or spiritualistic
Oh no, right,
significance, right? Because I mean, even if all this stuff is placebo, right? Okay, I'm going to like, I don't know, hold this crystal and it's gonna make me feel better. Even if that's complete placebo effect, I mean, well, it worked, it still made me feel better.
right.
That example. So, and regardless, I mean, whether that kind of stuff is real or unreal, we do have this fascination with objects, objectphilia, and then that gets put into our stories, into our film, into our story
Right.
traditions.
Wedding rings, freak
Wedding rings, yeah. But I do believe, okay, here's another one.
glasses.
So when I was doing my thesis for my master's, I had this I bought this tiger's eye was the type of crystal. It was a tiger's eye ring that I bought from just some like street vendor in Albuquerque, right? So I'm wearing it on my thumb and I'm working on my thesis, putting in a lot of work there. And I would just like fiddle with this thing as I'm thinking and working on my thesis, right? So I finally do my defense, right? And then I finish up the defense, killed it, did a really good job. It was fun, put out all my research and stuff. It was good. And then I walk outside and the ring slips off my thumb, hits the ground, and just breaks
Weird.
right at the end of this thing.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, and it was weird, and was that just coincidence? Sure, why not? I'm sure it was just coincidence. But either way, it did feel like, oh wow, this thing that I guess I had been putting some kind of energy in while I was doing all this research and working hard,
Yeah.
then just broke
Replicate.
after the process.
Right. Of the finish. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm also really with you in terms of certain things. Like I would never keep like an old like pair of clothes or some shit that like, a hoodie or something from like ex-girlfriends that I was really in love with at one time.
Right. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Maybe later after the fact, but there'd always still be that energy or memory connected to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In fact, I had like this aloe plant that Camilla had given me.
Yeah.
And it was flourishing and always alive, and I kept it in the same pot she gave me, right? And during this time, even when we broke up the first time, I was still so in love with her, thinking we'd get back together, whatever. And this plant thrived, right? And I used to keep
right.
one of her earrings that she broke in the soil, just showing there is a little like homage.
Sure. Yeah.
So we get back together eventually, and I show her this plant, whatever, etc. And she thinks it's romantic, weird. We get back together, things fine. I transplant the plant into a bigger pot because I think the pot's too small, little tiny plant. Right? Plant starts dying. We break up. Plant's almost dead at this point. I'm down to one last leaf, and I'm telling you, this thing was like 2 years old.
Yeah.
And just weird the symbology of like the end of that relationship, also with the end of that aloe plant. Because I wasn't like trying to kill it, you know what I'm saying? But it just so happened to die around the exact same time. So, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, again, whether that's coincidence or something deeper, energetic, or something like that happening. Either way, I think there is this deep fascination that we have with symbolic objects. And that's it. Maybe we're just projecting that psychological energy onto it. But either way, there's something there, right? I mean, as human beings, we're fascinated by objects, and then we can symbolically manipulate objects to do different things that then tweak our psyches.
What's crazy too is if we look at organized religion in objects, right?
Yeah,
sure.
The Eucharist, man. Yeah,
whatever. The Eucharist, Archimedes, freaking shit. Even like the Mormons in Utah, and one of the buildings in the basement, they have the magical objects, like whatever it's called, and they got all kinds of weird stones and knives and swords and shit like that apparently John Smith found that have like wild,
Yeah.
Even the story of the Ark, like you can't look into it because it's the power of God. It's a communicator with God, and only the holiest of holy chosen can carry the Ark, look into the Ark, deal with the Ark. Wow. There's been other accounts of this strange object that was in Jerusalem that aren't connected with the Bible. And a lot of archaeologists think that this thing was extraterrestrial, and that this box actually held some sort of weird, unexplained death power, over these people. And it very well could have been given to them. by, documentarians of chimp empire, human empire. So,
Yeah, who knows? And look at like Catholicism. I mean, there's so much weird iconography and like object worship going on in Catholicism. I mean, they literally have um what they claim to be is the bones of old saints and stuff like that held at the Vatican and all these cathedrals in Europe. Like I remember where I went to high school, this is so fucking weird. I mean, man, Catholicism's a cult for sure. But I went to St. Anthony's Catholic High School, Long Island, New York, and they had a piece of a knuckle bone of it. I think it was St. Anthony. It was either St. Anthony or St. Francis, one of those two. But a piece of a bone from this like 500-year-old saint, right? Held in this like this golden vessel thing, like talk about like, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark or something, so
yeah.
weird. This just like golden encased piece of bone. And we had to go to mass during, I don't know, during whatever holidays and stuff like that. Like we would occasionally have to like all the classes would be canceled and all the kids would, be shepherded into mass. And then they'd be holding up a piece of bone and like asking this auditorium of like 1,500 teenagers to like bow their heads to this bone and shit. And it's like that is the most occult, weirdest fucking shit I've probably ever experienced. And it was in St. Anthony's Catholic High School, Long Island, New York. So weird.
Which harks back to Dark Crystal too, and they're literally Catholicism and a lot of religions just making noise, just
Oh yeah.
holding up a human bone.
Right.
That's the thing. If you really think about it,
So
step back,
fucking weird, man.
think about this. It's like, do you realize what you've done?
No, exactly. No, that's exactly it. Where it's like, and especially with like Catholicism, just because that's the one I can speak to because I was raised in it. But it's like you have so many people who are normies, it's like they work their corporate jobs or they're just like cops and firefighters and nurses, shit like that. Just super, super mundane, normal ass people.
Right.
And then they go like worship ancient bones on the weekend.
Right.
But then they just like talk about how like conservative values and like American values and stuff like that, but then they're simultaneously worshiping ancient bones. It's so bizarre. Like I just don't get it.
I've literally told people that I care about whatever, just like, you're a rational and smart person. How could you, like, come on?
Right.
Like, you're joking, right?
Yeah.
Can't be, But here's a wild thought: is why do we then want to objectify ourselves?
Oh, good
Because
question.
we can then ascribe an identity, a power, something that doesn't even have to be objectively true to an inanimate object. Well, if we're inanimate, then we can be whatever we want to write ourselves out to be or imagine ourselves.
Oh shit. Yeah, that just got me. That just like blew my mind. Wait, so two things. First, I just want to go back to like the Catholic worshiping bones thing. One, even though that's fucking weird and scary in the context of a high school, and like conservative people doing that, I do think there is some sort of like performance art symbolism aspect going on that's actually really fascinating. And I kind of, as from the eyes of an artist, I respect. But yeah, ourselves as object. I mean, that's where you get like scapegoating individuals, which becomes and races of people, which becomes genocide, right? Like in the same way that if I destroy this object, I'll forget about my like broken heart or something like that. If I destroy this entire group of people, then everything will be fine.
Right. It's
Or the opposite, or
other someone else.
yeah, which can also come in the form of over loving them as an object, right? Exoticizing someone else and all that sort of stuff, fetishizing.
Right, ascribing an exotic storyline to them because they sort of weird objective object narrative,
Right.
And we do it to ourselves too, right? And this is the fear of Foucault's fear of categorization, where we're just objectifying ourselves. I'm a lawyer. this is who I am. This is what I
Yeah.
do. This
Yeah.
is how I act. This is how I
Right.
laugh. I'd like
No,
to
exactly. Yeah.
like eat shit. Right for him.
I love the
You know,
example. This is how I laugh.
the lawyer laugh,
Yeah, yeah.
or I am an academic, or I am only purely a Mormon or a Scientologist or whatever the hell.
Right. And that's because, well, I'm curious what Foucault says about this, but I wonder why. I mean, is that because we're afraid of the infinite? We're afraid of our own we're just giant, we're these giant creatures. I mean, it's impossible to put someone into a box. It's all just
Right.
conceptualizations and false categorizations that don't actually exist. I am a lawyer. It's like, no, you're not. You're blood vessels, your nervous system, you're all those things.
Sack of meat.
Yeah,
And you're subjected to a universe of chance. And I think that's what makes human beings in the massive
exactly.
here
Yeah.
so much too, is you don't have power over the future.
Right.
And that's what a lot of these fantasy movies, that's another good moral of the story too, is the person
Yeah.
who's willing to go on an adventure without knowing the outcome, especially knowing the outcome of who they are, right? And that's the coming of age
Nice.
story too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Being able to go on that journey to discover, like in Aragon, right? It's for a dragon rider in the ancient times, it was a very fearful thing to learn your real name.
Oh, that's so sick. I love
A
that.
lot of power and stuff. And elves were able to know the writers' names because they're ancient, but it took a lot of convincing to get an elf to tell you what it was. And even when you found out, you'd have to live with it for the rest of your life.
Right. Right.
So it was that journey, though, of becoming a writer. So you then, at the end of the book, get to know who you truly are, what your real name is, and your identification. But living with that concept is sublime. It's gothic. It's a fearful scape. It may be
Yeah.
paradisiacal, it may be an ideology, but it's also one of fear and
Yeah.
chance and action.
Yeah, and I love that you used the word sublime. That's where I was going to go with that. I mean, like that's the sublime, right? Is this overwhelming sense of majesty, whether that's in the natural world, whether it's, looking up at the sky at the stars, whether it's thinking about deep history, the number of people on the earth and every single one of them having their own unique experience. I mean, chance, the element of just like the unexpected and chance and unknowable and all of that. And what you're saying, like not knowing what the journey entails, but still saying yes to it, like Jen the Gelfling. I mean,
Right.
that's it. Like saying yes to the sublime, to the infinite that's standing right in front of you. I mean, that's absolutely terrifying, but at the same time, that's where true knowledge is to be found.
Exactly.
And true knowledge goes beyond I'm a lawyer, I'm a
Right.
teacher, I'm a whatever. You're not. I don't know I don't know what any of us are, but we're definitely something other than what we think we are.
And what it really boils down to is we want to not be categorized or objectified.
Yeah, that's
And
the
you
irony.
can see like that's the irony. If you can see this in, for instance, I'm thinking like superhero movies, right? We create a
Mm,
box, Captain America, genetically modified by the army, Steve Rogers, skinny guy, now brutal soldier. But then what we then do is spend $800 million making movies, trying to turn him into a diverse human that
mm.
lives by chance, by the effects of emotions, love, hatred, all this stuff. So he actually becomes more human than an object, right? Or than just
Becoming human.
becoming human essentially.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's my other podcast. Go like, subscribe.
Grab, we can the shout out dropping, name dropping here. I was actually thinking it would be kind of cool to do like release a couple bonus episodes for the Jared to Jared listeners. Like I could release our episode of the Pod Quest that we did years ago.
Bro, yeah, that's a good idea. Or even I could take this episode, put it on the one now, or
Right.
the yeah,
And
yeah,
then I could
definitely.
even like release a bonus becoming human episode that you did.
Yeah,
You know.
that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
And yeah.
The Pod Quest.
That's, what Jared didn't know was we had just begun.
Hey, talk about the hero's journey. That whole episode is the hero's journey.
Oh yeah, seriously, that man, the podcast was pretty good. Individual human quests,
Yeah, that was cool.
never
That's
about the
cool.
quest, just a quest.
Yeah. Wait, here's a question for you. Because you texted me the other day something about uh you have some kind of beef with like Disney movies or like or
Yeah.
kids movies today or so,
Oh,
something
I'm
like
so
that.
glad you
But
brought this up. Yeah. So a little bit of a rant, maybe not so much. Take my daughter to go see the movie Elemental. Okay, Disney
okay.
Pixar's new Elemental. This fucking piece of dumpster fire trash has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Um, it's okay. So first of all, it's so long. Back to movies being long. I kept looking at Dolly, just like, when is this thing gonna end, man? Number two, twice. There's no bad villain in the whole entire movie. There's no more villains. When we
Oh,
when we
interesting.
grew
Okay.
up, it was Jafar and Ka and Sid from Toy Story, and
Yeah.
we had good and evil. There's no more good and evil. There's not
Mm.
a conceptuality of that. Okay. Number three, when we were younger, it was adventure, friendship, brotherhood, growing up, being a kid, not forgetting to be happy in the jungle with Baloo and eat bananas and shit. Nowadays, this whole movie is about people in their 20s, like hooking up with each other. It's like we don't want our 9 year olds worrying about dating and the family business and shit like that. It was all love story. And listen to this love story.
Huh.
The girl gives up on her dreams to like open up with work with her dad and shit and all this stuff. So she could date some guy that lives with his parents and cries all the time. It's like, what is the moral of this fucking movie, man? Like, what
Yeah. Yeah.
happened to kid movies? What happened to it's oh, and then here's another thing. Last point, number 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sad. Everybody's crying in there. It's like, man, I remember Rescuers Down Under. So much fun, adventure, freaking Tailspin, Aladdin. We're freaking one stop, get on the rooftop, jumping around, freaking having a good time. Robin Williams is cracking jokes. This is like Auschwitz by Pixar. Everybody's crying in there. It's so depressing. It starts off with a short from the Pixar movie Up, which, by the way, is most depressing thing you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah.
So sad, the short about this old guy going on his first date after his wife died of like 60 years with his dog. Everybody's crying. These two girls behind us, one of them like bawling in tears, starts like jokingly, just like, they're monsters. Freaking monsters. Oh, these people are monsters. And they like started laughing. And it's true. These writers are monsters, man. Just like, hey, I've recently watched The Evil Dead, Boogeyman, freaking Saving Private Ryan, whatever. There's nothing as atrocious and scary as a new kid movie, I'm telling you.
Bro,
Hashtag PTSD.
bro, you're just a fucking piece of shit boomer, man. Like
Freaking millennial piece of shit.
Okay, boomer. Oh man, kids movies today, fucking, it's no good. Like people are crying, showing emotions. These movies suck, bro. Bunch of
Dude,
snowflakes.
where's the action? Where's the deaths? Oh, man. Where's the adventure?
Man, yeah, I really can't speak to this because I can't even remember the last time I saw a kids movie
Right.
other than Dark Crystal, which is terrifying and not really a kids movie.
That'd be an interesting reading too. The 80s, like what is the Dark Crystal saying about its moment in time, you know?
Who knows, man? But yeah, I mean, if they have tossed out like heroic narratives, I'll just take your word for it. It sounds like they have. What? Just not even going to question what you say. Just
I
my
mean,
word. Okay.
it's yeah, okay. I mean, watch Up and Pixar. You'll call me when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
leaving the mental institution.
But what's that about? Why are we? What's going on here? How come we don't have heroic? Okay, wait. Okay, I'm without having seen any of these movies. I'm just gonna throw a theory out there. So, okay, I was talking to Ash the other night about how there's just sort of like general cultural degradation in our country in this historical moment where it's like the only good like architecture is from like fucking 200 years ago. You see these beautiful buildings that are like all ornate and have these carvings. And then anything that was built in the past 30 years, they're just these like, it looks like it could have been like 3D printed from Walmart or something. It's just like, these just like ugly buildings. Everyone's
Really
walking
funny
around.
example, quick funny example that I saw
Yeah.
on the internet recently. Somebody made a meme, or so it was a Twitter thing. And Pharrell posted his house, his like $30 million mansion for sale.
Yeah.
The top comment was like, "Man, this dude lives in a community college."
Yeah.
It looked exactly like a community college, like C&M, just like all windows and stuff. It's
Oh, that's
but
funny.
again back to the architecture and just
Yeah. But yeah, it's like it looks like, nothing like we've lost our sense of inherent human majesty. Everyone walks around in sweatpants all day. The architecture looks like, community colleges 3D printed. Like, we're all just like, I don't know, wearing shit from Walmart, whatever. It's like, I think there's this general sense of kind of cultural degradation. And is the loss of the heroic narrative kind of is that what's happening in the storytelling realm, in the movie realm, in the novel realm?
wild, the death of the hero.
Yeah, the death of the hero. There's
Uh,
yeah.
and if you
We're-
think about it, with the military industrial complex, every single war we get into is for money. When you think about it,
Oh yeah, yeah.
like prisons, everything is for money nowadays, right? There's no
Yeah.
more heroes. Even at post 9/11, the COVID thing, there were no heroes. Now we have just Pfizer sponsoring everything, making trillions.
Yeah, and that's a weird thing too, right? Look at like sports stadiums where it used to be like a stadium that was named either after the team or after, someone heroic, right? Whether that was like a player or whatever. Now it's all like, yeah, welcome to Pfizer Stadium, shit like that. So it's like, what is happening?
Oh,
We're
isn't
losing
that
any sense of
still
human majesty.
a hero?
Yeah. Yeah,
This is
we've
kind of what
lost the heroic
happened in like
narrative.
Roman history, though, right? They lost
Yeah.
their emperors, and then it went to the generals who were running shit, and then they were all corrupt, and there was no more heroes.
Yeah.
The only thing possibly left to hold on to post Roman Empire was the church, which was also fucked up in its own right. But
Yeah. Yeah. So we've lost human heroism,
maybe that marks the end of a civilization too.
right?
The
Maybe we've
end of
already collapsed.
heroes in literature and film, in
Yeah,
pop.
because we straight up don't have heroes anymore, right? We don't have there's no one in the political stage who can be seen as a hero. There's I don't know, no apparently taking your word for it, no heroes in film, and even look at
Well, look at the hero that we had to grasp onto. My friend Marco really made a good point last night after Indiana Jones is.
yeah,
I was like, man, like Harrison Ford, God bless him. I love him, but he's waddling, his run is hilarious. The guy's a
yeah,
thousand.
dude's like 80, yeah, like
And
Fucking Joe Biden.
and I
Joe
can't
Biden as Indiana Jones.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and like Picard, they come out with the new series Picard, which is based on Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek, and it's
Oh, cool.
original Next Generation. It's badass. I love it. But I mean, Picard. I mean, the guy can't, you know, can't even talk half the time and half the scenes. Guys, like, I get that
Yeah.
was 111 years old,
Yeah.
And I was like, why do we keep doing that? Isn't there somebody else or whatever? And
Yeah.
my friend was like, there's just no more actors like that there's no more actors, actresses that fit that mold or narrative anymore. There's no
Sure.
more Indiana Joneses, and
Right.
we were thinking maybe like Ryan Gosling, like Gray Man or whatever. But I mean, he's gonna be Ken in the new Barbie, you know what I mean? So like there's a lot of like, and he does comedies and stuff, and there's just like,
Sure. Sure.
I don't know. And then another point is like, we don't want a hero anymore.
Bro, exactly, exactly. Because I was gonna say, what does Gen Z and millennials, what do we love to do? We love to tear down heroes.
Right.
I mean, that's something we just get a kick out of. Like when I was teaching all the like Gen Z high school kids, like they would love finding out that like Gandhi was actually a piece
Right.
of shit, or
Right.
fill in the blank. It doesn't even matter who, or it's just like Martin Luther King, Gandhi, it doesn't even matter who. It's just like every single cultural hero that we've had, we cut them down now.
Right.
And what is that? It's weird. And it's like, I think there's something deeply disturbing happening in American culture at this moment where we're cutting down every notion of a hero. I think there's this kind of like we're almost like quickening the death rate, like the pace of cultural death or something like that. Like we're
And if you
offing
think
ourselves,
about it, like harking back to sports, you brought up sports a little bit. Like Michael Jordan heroized. Guy would
Yeah.
punch his teammates out, gamble, cheating on his wife, guys wild. Charles Barkley idolized. He used to tell the press, I ain't your kid's role model. And he would tell the press, like, I'm not your freaking kid's role.
Yeah.
The anti-hero is what we really praise. We live in freaking Mordor these days,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
individuals like LeBron James led a pretty clean life, etc. No scandals, still with his high school sweetheart, family man.
Yeah. It sounds great.
World championships. Guy doesn't get no respect for he's constantly getting disrespected, whatever. It's
Yeah.
just interesting. And like one of the most popular and certainly my favorite superhero show is called The Boys, and they're all anti-heroes. None of them are heroes, right? All of them
Yeah.
are dark sides and conflict with good and evil and the two in one.
Yeah.
Nobody is a clear cut. This is our this is morality, and this is
Yeah. Hey, maybe this is like an important growth stage though that we're all kind of in, because on one hand, yeah, having these heroes is important. I think it's important to have heroes and role models, right? But then at the same time, is the desire for a hero also coming from a similar place as the desire for someone to save you in a very scary historical moment? I'm thinking like Hitler or something, right? I mean, people definitely heroized Hitler, so maybe there's like, in the same way that we want some kind of savior, religious, political hero, all these things, maybe that's a similar energy as this like desire for a hero. And then through rejecting that, at least for a moment, in order to complicate that and see that no one's a true hero, that people are actually, right? Isn't that just another categorization, hero? And then to see people as more full individuals who have their dark and have their light, isn't that a sign of maturity?
Sure. I'm also thinking that this is possibly a classic narrative for a hero to rise, right?
Oh, interesting.
It's in the land of the blind, right? In the land of no hero,
Right. Yeah.
brave rise, and really free us. But that's the fear, and that's the evil and the potential danger of heroizing any individual, right?
Yeah.
As same with Germany was post World War One, lost their asses, economical shambles, whatever. Here's this hero with a hilarious mustache that's going to pull us out back to peace and freedom and
Yeah.
ability and money, And what happens? Freaking,
Yeah.
guys, tyrant. So
Right. I think it's also the the death process of the patriarchy,
sure, sure,
like I think, and I'm not saying this like it's a bad thing or a good thing. I don't know. It's just seems like it is. But I think within a patriarchal society where all the music, films, everything is sort of um, supporting that society, the hero narrative, which is always a young man, typically a young white man, is like that's the thing that's most celebrated, right? Is this like young savior man.
right.
And then as patriarchal culture is starting to,
But see, I wrote about this
die out, you lose that.
in cinematic camouflage, right? Uh, the dissertation, the book is
Yeah.
the reimagining of the hero, right?
Right.
Called like the super camoufleur, where is we're starting to get Miles Morales and Black Panther and stuff like that, but
Right. Right.
getting them in multiple different mediums
Hmm.
allows you to connect with these characters unlike ways you never would before, like video games or whatever, comic book video
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
and movies.
Hmm.
But especially in these video games where you actually can control, relate to, and be minority superheroes, right?
Right. Right.
Which is a place we didn't grow up in. So I
Yeah.
would say that there is growth. And again, for Dolly's sake, wasn't the worst movie, right? Elemental. The animation was okay, and then there was probably some good little notions there about segregation and whatever, and
Yeah. Yeah.
especially fatherhood and like with the daughter and which dreams you want to pursue. But I'm just a crusty old millennial at this point.
Hey, you want to hear a cool theory? It's one of these kind of like overarching theories of the history of the world. So it came from Aleister Crowley, who was like a occultist kind of guy from the early 1900s. But anyway, he thought that early human history was the age of Isis, right? And he puts it in terms of the kind of Egyptian holy family, which is like Isis, Osiris, and Horus. Isis is the woman, Osiris is the man, and then Horus is the son. So he said that there was the age of Isis, which was the matriarchal age, right? And then eventually that lasted for like whatever, 10,000 years or something. And then things shifted into the patriarchal age. And with the 20th century, we started to see, that age kind of closing out. And around the new millennium, we'd be entering the new aeon of Horus. And Horus is the child who's becoming an adult. And Horus is kind of androgynous as well. So more daughter and son than just son.
Right.
But anyway, it was the idea that you had this child who no longer needed the mother or the father and was becoming their own human being, becoming a self-sufficient adult. And that's kind of the trajectory that society takes, is one from matriarchy to patriarchy to individual self-sufficiency in like a strong positive way.
Right.
So who knows? Maybe we're just rejecting the parents. Maybe we're like adolescents in terms of society. We're just rejecting parents, rejecting the power structure, rejecting heroes so that we can become our own heroes.
Right. It kind of reminded me of like the story of a human life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In this matriarchy with the mother,
Hmm.
nurture a caregiver, then we go to our patriarchy stage of coming age.
Right. You're hanging out with dad more and like,
And when you're old and you're dying, you go to this androgynous stage of
right.
self-reflection and spirituality. And
Yeah. And that's what I love about those kind of overarching narratives and theories, is that it does the whole kind of microcosm macrocosm thing, right? I mean, exactly what you're just saying, that the trajectory of an individual human life also maps on to the overall trajectory of just humanity as a whole.
right. And that's back to the Dark Crystal, where two and two became one. Good and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like the Gelfling narrative actually begins with the Age of Horus. Where are the parents, right? Where is everything? There's a power vacuum. There's void. The masters have died, and now it's time for the next generation to step up.
Brilliant.
Such a good movie.
Love it. Oh yeah, it's so good. This is my favorite podcast of all
Yeah,
time.
hell yeah.
Any 4th of July plans?
No, not really. You?
Fire off some firecrackers. I kind of wanted to barbecue here at the house, but
Nice, hell yeah.
it's a Tuesday, kind of hard to get people together to do stuff. So
That's true. Yeah, weird day.
yeah, freaking Independence Day. Our Independence Day. Love it. You ever feel patriotic? Do you ever get like patriotic?
I love that question. Yes, but it's complicated.
Right.
I mean, that's another thing, right? I mean, we live in an era where like to say that you're proud of your American heritage is to say that you're like a fascist, which sucks, that sucks that people feel that way. I mean, I think it's important to also have a pride, a pride and yeah, just a pride in where you come from. I think that's important.
But I think everybody that does bash is trying to reimagine a new America, which,
Sure.
I've
One that
always
you can
said
be
I'm
proud
a
of. Yeah.
patriotic person,
Yeah.
never
Wait,
met.
you said you are? You are patriotic? Cool.
Remember when I wanted to write the ballot box, because
Oh
it's
yeah,
really
yeah.
not about like being unpatriotic. It's
Right.
patriotic for the right things and the right
Exactly. Yeah.
realities for the country.
Yeah. I feel patriotic about American art, when I think of like writers and artists. Like I love American literature. I think it's incredible.
Food, heritage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Baseball.
Yeah. There's a lot of great stuff for sure.
Love it. I like that little final.
conclude the episode with just like, yeah, we're both patriots. Jared, we endorse America.
On behalf of the Jareds, thank you for listening. You can reach the show at jaredtojared.com. We will be back next week, and always remember, what was sundered and undone shall be whole, the two made one. Can't wait to see you next time.